The powers that be. Fight the power.
Wake up, Detroit. You here on the #1 television network for the voice of the people, the People's TV. We are here with your host, Tia Diva DaRebel, and a very infamous guest that we have here on the show today, Mr. Ramzu Yunus, very infamous man, regarding some situations that happened in Highland Park on the 4th of July, and we want to have him have the opportunity to, give his stance on what actually happened, what Independence Day is, and the very first thing that we want to know is what brought you here to Highland Park?
That's a good question, because I'm from North Carolina, but I was living in Africa since 2005 up to 2014 when I decided to come back to America. I went to Africa because Robert Mugabe was over there pulling a revolutionary move, taking land back from white folks, giving it to black people. So I wanted to join in with that. So I went over there and I ended up spending 9 years over there, working with his office and doing various things in Zimbabwe and traveling elsewhere from there. But different experiences over there, witnessing certain things by revolutionaries like President Mugabe, I realized that I should be back at home in America doing something revolutionary, So I decided it was nation time, which means nationhood should be on the agenda for black people, which we've been saying nation time for before I was born. Actually, the term was phrased, coined by the revolutionaries of that period. But there was never really an actual move for nationhood. It was just, a lot of groups called nation and so forth, but nationhood was not on the agenda. Independence for black people has not been a big push, a concrete push. So I decided, hey, I'll go back to America and we'll push it. When I came, I didn't know where we would be. I thought we would do it in Atlanta. I launched Nation Time, and I did launch it in Atlanta, but where would we be independent at? And certain things start coming, whispers in my ear, so to speak, and Detroit. So I looked up Detroit and saw the situation in Detroit, how Detroit went from the #1 city at one time in America to the last city. It's the only major city in history of America to go bankrupt. So I looked up and I came up here and visited and saw that the city was empty now, full of abandoned buildings, hundreds of thousands, some say millions of abandoned properties here in Detroit. So a perfect situation for black people to establish themselves as a nation. You got an infrastructure that's already there, but it's just empty. Needing people to fill up the infrastructure and make it productive.
Yeah. Well, thank you. That is absolutely something that's definitely needed, and it's not talked about too much. But I would like for you to really explain to us in detail what Independence Day is, what Independence Day means to you, what Independence Day means to the people.
Well, Independence Day, of course, always meant to us, 4th of July, America's independence, which is when the so-called founding fathers, who were a group of white settlers, representatives of the white people at that time, slave owners, had a lot of grievances against the British, who ruled them from afar. And because of those grievances and those injustices that they were suffering, they decided to say, hey, the only way out is to declare independence, and we just go for self in short terms. So they did that, and now you have the most powerful nation in the world. But just as they were justified in declaring independence, there's no one or no people on earth more justified than black people in America, going through what we have went through. So I said, hey, let's declare independence. And so I picked July the 4th also as the day, since July the 4th is a mockery to us for celebrating independence when we were slaves in 1776. Those same principles of life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness that the founding fathers espoused on were not even offered to us, But they felt they had the unalienable God-given right to enjoy those liberties and those principles and those rights. So us being ignored. So let's use that same day and declare our independence. So that's what I did. I said, look, let's have it here in Highland Park, the middle of Detroit. Let's declare our independence. Let's take the city free for ourselves. All the abandoned properties in here in Detroit, hundreds of thousands, we give them away to the poor people who need homes. And also we can give ourselves reparations, which the city is worth billions of dollars value as far as the assets of the city, not including the access to fresh water. It makes it even billions more in value. So that can be collateralized, and you can give the people reparations, a stimulus package, whatever you want to call it. You can do that. So I said, hey, we're going to call the people to come here. Let's declare our independence. Let's give homes to those who need the homes. And let's give ourselves reparations. Because we've been crying for reparations for a long time, never to get them, but we petition, we do so forth and so on. But hey, we can give ourselves reparations. And we take the city.
Absolutely. That's something that's definitely needed. I would like for you to take a moment to explain some of the policies that was discussed or that was listed on the flyers for the people, for them to be able to understand, get a better understanding of it, a grasp of it, and how would those properties be distributed?
Okay, one of the new policies that we were saying, like the people, actually on the 4th of July was a referendum. People voting saying we're going to withdraw our consent from the current government and give it to a new government that had these new policies that you're talking about. There's a lot of policies, but I had just certain ones highlighted. Number one being $100,000 given to each individual citizen, adult citizen, or we call it reparations. How would that be given to the people? Like we just explained, the city is where it's valuable, has value. You know, Detroit itself is worth several hundred billions of dollars. Highland Park maybe worth about $2 billion. We can collateralize that with any bank, not just a local bank or international bank or a development bank from another country. You collateralize the assets of that city, and now you got some funds to sit upon, that you're sitting upon, that you can distribute to the people and give them reparations, economic stimulus, or whatever you want to call it. Another one of the policies was free homes given to the people. Many of properties in Detroit, Highland Park, hundreds of thousands, some say millions of properties, they're abandoned. Nothing is being done with those properties. Why is there 30 to 40,000 homeless people in Detroit, but you have all these properties that are going to waste, being vandalized? Give them to the people. Those properties belong to the people. The city is managing them for the people, but they're mismanaging them and selling them off to investors who in turn raise the prices up in the community, taxes and so forth and so on, and drive black people out, which is their design anyway. So we're checking that, saying, no, we're going to give those homes to the people because we are the people. We are a new council. They don't consent to those policies. This is a new policy. Okay, that's another policy was release all non-violent convicts. We already know the justice system here in America is not just. Just recently, a young kid was released from prison after serving 9 years, and they knew that the Wayne County prosecutor and different police knew the young boy didn't murder those people. But he was sent anyway, so he's released. So the system is unjust. But as far as non-violence is concerned, you got people, so-called criminals, convicts, sitting in prison for 20, 30, 40 years for selling some little drugs, a poverty-related crime. They in poverty, they're trying to sell something that's illegal, and they get time like they murdered people. You know, that's unfair. Even the President Obama recognizes that he's pardoning people now and pushing for lessening the sentences of these individuals that are charged with such. So no, we're going to review that. We know people have been mischarged. They've been these are crimes of poverty. Let's give them some. We'll give them what they call it pardon. We'll pardon them. So let y'all come on home. Just know you're not going to do that again. But come on home. You don't deserve those sentences. So we're going to release all non-violent convicts. Once we get control of the city who charged them, the judicial system can release the people they put in prison. So we will release those convicts. That's one of the policies. Another policy was to suspend foreclosures. No, everybody's getting kicked out of their homes. People had homes for years just because they can't pay some taxes, which we all know if you really study what taxes are, is a fraudulent misrepresentation. You know, a fraudulent thing the government puts on the people to rob the people because they are malfunctioning. So, we recall those foreclosures and tell people you don't have to pay those taxes on it. You can have your homes back, or if it's in foreclosure, you suspend that foreclosure. So we have the power to do that. And another one was full employment. Now we'll nationalize the economy. So everything that's sold in Detroit shall be made in Detroit. Detroit spends $90 million on food per week. That's enough to employ 151,000 people at a $15 minimum wage per year. But Detroit, of course, doesn't look like $90 million per week. Highland Park doesn't look like $900,000 to $1.2 million per week. On food alone, that's what they spend. But if all those items that we bought were produced here in the city, then that money will benefit us as a people in the city. But of course, America and the global economy is run by a global elite of bankers who want to usurp the wealth of the people that work for it. They say, no, it has to be a free market economy. You got to allow us to sell our goods in your country or your city, whatever. So we just end up bloodsucking you. You can't just nationalize and say you only can sell our goods. So we want to change that policy and say, look, you're going to sell the products made locally, which is increased employment. So if everybody's spending money on bread, water, food that's produced locally, then people locally will be working. There'll be 100% employment. So that's one of the policies that we're going to be bringing in play here for independence, an independent state policy.
Absolutely. We'd like to see if you would take a moment to discuss exactly what did happen on July 4th and what things do you think that are necessary to make this thing go off on October 12th, on the Day of Atonement.
Yes, well, what happened on July the 4th was the people were gathering as we expected. We invited them to come out to replace the system, the government, and with a new policy. The government arrived, the mayor, city council, and policemen, they arrived on the scene. Of course, if someone is going to be taken out of power, they want to witness and see if it's really going to happen and try to do something to stop that if possible. So on that day, the mayor, they showed up, they had the police force out there, they even had extra help for the police force. And as we were proceeding on with the event, had the people voting, they decided, hey, let's crush this right now before he gets the necessary numbers, because people was lined up. It was many out there. The masses were showing up and voting on the referendum that we don't consent to this government anymore. They said, no, let's make a move. They sent the police in to crush it. I was beaten and detained. Several others suffered the same fate. And they stopped the event. First, they tried to run the people away before they even attacked us. They ran the people away, threatening people. Said, we're going to arrest all of y'all. And people who didn't know their rights, they of course, you're afraid of police. They was out there fully armed in riot gear with guns and all kinds of stuff. So, of course, the people were scared. But some of them stayed put. But in order to combat that, or the people that did stay put, this is attacked the so-called ringleader.
As police try to break up the crowd.
So they attacked. And it was a wrap.
So, I really want to thank you for the time that you've taken to sit down to give your story, to explain to the people exactly what really happened, because we understand that there is a systematic control over the minds of our people, and we have a devilish propaganda machine that's constantly putting images out to talk negative on our people and to make our people look like, things that are not happening. So it's important that for us to provide our own news, our own media outlet. So it's, again, your host of the #1 network for the voice of the people, the People's TV, and we demand all power to the people. Tia Diva DaRebel, all power to the people.
To make this successful, we need the participation of the people. Those who are concerned with injustices that we have been suffering for over 400 years in America. The current injustices here in Detroit, the evictions, the water shutoffs, the police murderers, the wrongfully accused and wrongfully incarcerated, those who are concerned with such things, and just the overall improvement of living for black people. We need you to participate. It's the system's fault that all this is happening. It's the system that's been geared against us from day one. But the system derives its powers from your consent. So if you don't want to give this system power to do the injustice, withdraw your consent. Show up on the Day of Atonement, on Black Independence Day, and withdraw your consent from this system. And let's go independent. Powers to the people.